I have almost no memories from before 7th grade, which more than likely means something happened in my childhood that was so traumatic my brain basically turned off until the age of 12, which leaves a ton of questions that, if I'm completely honest, I don't really want to know the answers to. What's even harder is that my first really clear memories are all of hallucinations. The hallucinations, they started in middle school, and you remember TV static on old TVs? That's what they looked like, that TV static shaped like people that you could see through. And eventually the static people started to get joined by something like a photo negative superimposed over everything that I saw. The negatives were always of horrific things and events that either I was directly involved in or more than likely directly responsible for. And every day I was left with the question, is this real? Or am I just crazy? And to this day, I don't know which option I fear more. The weird thing is, growing up with all of that convinced me beyond a shadow of a doubt that God was real. It just also convinced me that God hated me. Guys, I grew up in church. I heard all the sermons. The only way that anything made sense to me was that this loving God I heard about just didn't love me. It didn't help that the people at church never seemed to actually act like Christ outside of the pew, and it all made it seem like some kind of cosmic joke that was at my expense. I couldn't understand how this loving God could subject me to such horror, and as a teen starving for answers and meaning in the midst of all of this suffering, I turned to the occult. I was convinced that somewhere there was some hidden wisdom or a magic word or some secret talisman that could help me, that could just make it all better. But the thing is, guys, when you research the occult, you draw the attention of demons. And that just made everything worse. I never found the answers I sought because I was looking in all the wrong places. I was trying to figure out the wisdom of men and not the wisdom of God. It left me convinced. I couldn't trust myself, obviously. I couldn't trust God, and that my problems were so big, God either couldn't or wouldn't save me. But the reality is I never tried to follow God, not really. I just say a prayer every now and again and treated God like a genie. And because my wishes never got granted, I was left chasing whatever felt good at the moment. By 21, that pursuit of pleasure left me broken in every sense of the word and desperate for anything or anyone that could help. The overall depression I was enduring was so debilitating that at times I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, couldn't get out of bed for weeks. And I eventually got so fed up that I sought help. And several years of intense therapy later, my life was actually getting a little better. I got diagnosed with bipolar type 2, prescribed some medication, and it started to help. See, the meds, they didn't mystically fix me overnight, but they gave me room to breathe. See, they're like soundproofing. It doesn't just make all the noise go away, but it turns that foghorn blaring in your ear into a dog barking out in the yard. And looking back on it, that breathing room was the biggest sign that God was working to save my life, that he actually did care about me. I was too blind to see it. And that breathing room that I was given revealed to me that I was empty, that my life was meaningless, that in fact I believed my life was worthless, and really, I didn't care if I lived or died. Eventually, I became broken enough to fall to my knees, bawling like a child and literally screaming to the heavens, begging God for help, for salvation, and for the first time in years, I actually prayed. And I begged to know if this loving God I'd heard about all my life was actually real. And literally, that instant, every sermon I'd ever heard where I was told to pray and read my Bible flashed through my head. And so I figured, all right, my life can't get any worse. Let's try something different. So I prayed, I read my Bible, I put the work in to get to know God. And God used that work to open my eyes and my heart to show me that he actually did love me. He led me to LifePoint, to a crew of guys who I grew to love and who became my closest friends. Guys who invested in me that I could trust to have my best interests in mind. And for the first time in my life, I found peace and a home. Today, I'm 26. God led me to my beautiful, loving, wonderful wife. And soon he's gonna give us our first child. Some days, don't get me wrong, I still hallucinate. Some days I still get depressed. Some days I don't sleep. But it's different now. Because even in the darkest moments, I can lean on God and the network of support he's given me to remind me what's real and what matters. But the thing is, I can't do this alone. And if you're honest with yourself, you know you can't either. None of us can. I mean, we've all tried to save ourselves, and we've all failed more times than any of us care to count. But God doesn't, and never will fail us. That's why he gave us this instruction manual to teach us how to live in the shape of his divine word, the Bible. Are you willing to be a man and to choose what life you want to live and take steps to get there? To ask yourself the hard questions about you, your life, and everything else. Are you willing to take a chance on honestly trying to live God's way? Are you willing to be a little vulnerable and open up to a crew of guys that can trust you, and then more importantly, you can trust? This is the one place where no man gets to be alone in the world or in your week, where every man can find help from whatever is breaking his life apart. If you're willing to put the work in, I promise, guys, I promise you, you'll never be alone again. You'll have God at your back and every guy here ready to defend you. But you gotta take the first step. You gotta put the work in. You gotta chase God, or you wind up right back here. So, what are you gonna choose?